Coming up on Network Africa. Burkina Faso Electoral Commission declares Roch Marc Kabore winner of Sunday's presidential elections after securing 53.5% of the votes cast. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrives in Zimbabwe for talks on how to revive the country's ailing economy. World leaders meet to discuss the effect of climate change on Africa at the ongoing Conference of Parties COP21 meeting in Paris. Hello and welcome to the program. I am Adeshewa Josh. It's a new dawn in Burkina Faso after conducting its first successful elections since last year's popular uprising which toppled long-serving President Blaise Compaoré. With more than 50% of the votes cast, Roch Marc Kabore was proclaimed the winner of Sunday's presidential elections as he becomes the country's first new leader in decades. The election of the former Prime Minister represents a pivotal moment for the West African nation, which has been ruled by leaders who came to power in coups for most of its history since independence from France in 1960. Kabore defeated former Finance Minister Séphérine Diabre, who scored just 29.7% of the votes, and 12 other candidates.
The Electoral Commission says Roch Marc Kabore was proclaimed the winner of the presidential election in Burkina Faso and will become the country's first new leader in decades. The election of the former Prime Minister represents a pivotal moment for the West African nation, which has been ruled by leaders who came to power in coups for most of its history since independence from France in 1960. Kabore served as Prime Minister and head of the National Assembly under President Blaise Compaoré, who was toppled by an uprising in October 2014 after 27 years in power. Kabore split with Compaoré early last year and formed an opposition party. The Electoral Commission says provisional results from November 29 election showed Kabore won 53.5% of the vote to defeat former Finance Minister Séphérine Diabre, who scored 29.7%, and 12 other candidates. Turnout was about 60%. The outright majority.
Well, though, let's give you more facts about the winner of Burkina Faso presidential elections. He was born in April the 25th, 1957. He is a Burkinabe politician. He was Prime Minister from 1994 to 1996. He was President of the National Assembly from 2002 to 2012. He served as President of Congress for Democracy and Progress CDP, and he established the People's Movement for Progress in 2014. Though elections are still months away, neighboring Gambia, the country's electoral commission has already announced its preparedness to conduct free and fair polls. According to the electoral commission, Gambia will hold its presidential election in December 2016, with legislative and local polls to follow in April 2017 and April 2018, respectively. The electoral commission chairman, Alagi Mustafa Karayo, told journalists that the presidential election will be held on Thursday, the 1st in December 2016, and analysts believe the elections could challenge the incumbent president's bid for another term in office. President Yahya Jammeh has been ruling the African nation of about 2 million people since 1994, when the then 29-year-old seized power in a bloodless coup. He was re-elected in 2011 with 72% of the votes. Well, it appears the UN is taking a different stand on how best to resolve the crisis in Burundi. Instead of its usual tough stance about the situation in that country, the newly appointed UN Special Advisor on Burundi says he believes Burundi's crisis cannot be resolved through the use of force and has called on warring parties to renounce violence. Jamal Benoba, made the comments after briefing Security Council member states following a visit to the country where he met government authorities, opposition and civil society groups. The special advisor also called on warring parties to engage in political dialogue to bring an end to the ongoing conflict in which more than 240 people have been killed already since anti-government protests broke out in April, and some 21,000 have fled to neighboring countries.
This cannot be resolved through the use of force. All sides must assume their responsibility for the peace and stability of Burundi, renouncing violence and engaging in an inclusive and credible political process. The UN remains open to all initiatives that can restore peace to the country and has a wealth of experience and expertise in this area. We stand ready to assist Burundi and its people based on a decision by the Security Council. The situation in Burundi requires the cooperation of all stakeholders, and it requires a political dialogue, a political process in which all components of society can bring their contribution, including civil society.
Let's take a short break on Network Africa. When we come back, Chinese President Xi Jinping is in Zimbabwe to discuss how to move the country's economy forward, and we will have the latest for you on that story from Harare. You're watching Network Africa, coming to you live on Channels Television from Lagos, Nigeria. You can get all our top stories on our website, channelstv.com, and on youtube.com/channelsweb. To get us on your mobile device, log on to m.channelstv.com. Especially for our viewers outside of West Africa, just log on to m.channelstv.com and you are live onto us from wherever you're watching in the world. You can also download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows phones from their respective stores. Zimbabwe's badly bitten economy could get a facelift as Chinese President Xi Jinping and President Robert Mugabe hold talks in Harare on how to revive the country's ailing economy. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Zimbabwe earlier today, the first visit by a Chinese leader since 1996, amid expectations that he would sign deals to fund infrastructure, electricity generation and other projects. Mr. Xi, who is on his first visit to Zimbabwe, said it remained a cornerstone for China's foreign policy to consolidate its relationship with Zimbabwe and other African countries. Mr. Xi and a large Chinese delegation also will fly to South Africa on Wednesday, where he will attend the first China-Africa summit to be held in Africa. Well, this particular summit is expected to be attended by leaders from across the continent. Let's bring in John Mokwesi, the online editor of Newsday. He's been monitoring this story for us from Harare. He joins me now on Network Africa. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Well, thank you for joining us. What a historic day it's been for you people in Zimbabwe. I mean, President Xi is visiting your country to speak to President Mugabe. Give us the latest on this trip.
Oh, well, what we've seen in the morning, school children were lining the roads from the airport in the early morning, and street lights have been uplifted, and there was a lot of road maintenance that was happening last week. The state media has been lauding this as a sign of prudence of the local policy that Mugabe embarked on, when they felt that the West was not forthcoming in terms of understanding where he was going with the country. He felt that that was politically incorrect, so he is saying it's looking east. So the general mood in the government is that this will help resuscitate the comatose economy. So generally, from the visit in the morning, when Kashi arrived with his wife and the delegation of about 200 people, among the ministers, Communist Party of China officials and business executives, he got a 21-gun salute within the guard of honor, and yeah, so that's basically what has happened since he has arrived.
It sounds like a grand reception for President Xi Jinping, and that is quite expected. They obviously have had closed-door meetings with President Mugabe. Do you know the outcome of that meeting?
Mm-hmm. Can you come back again?
What is the outcome of the meeting between President Mugabe and President Xi Jinping?
Well, what the indications that at least the Minister of Finance is telling us is that this visit is quite a positive visit, because they expect that China will invest nearly $4 billion in the country's energy sector, because Zimbabwe has been at least courting and seducing the Chinese to come up with something like this. How far we can go and expect this to resuscitate the economy is one thing that we're still waiting for. Well, the Minister of Finance said that the energy sector and our huge debt overhang is something that the Chinese are here to try and offset.
Okay, so this isn't the first...
And they're also saying... Hello?
Right, this isn't the first Chinese president that will be visiting Zimbabwe under President Mugabe. Are there reasons to believe that this visit will resuscitate Zimbabwe's ailing economy?
Well, look, we have signed deals before with China, okay? And we've expected quite a lot to come out of those deals. The president was in China, I think, was it early this year or was it last year? And he said that they had signed a lot of mega deals that were going to change the energy sector, because there was a lot of power shortages. And this has made the country's economy sectors uncompetitive. But you see, nothing has really happened in that front. In fact, the blackouts have increased in Zimbabwe at the moment. And one other thing that you have to realize is that we need to fight corruption first as a nation and as a government, and we've failed in that regard. So the money can be here. Okay, the Chinese will invest a little bit of this, but we need to look at ourselves first as Zimbabweans and see just what corrective measures we can have at national level. So the government recently launched a blueprint that they call Zima. Some analysts have been saying the government is not even what the paper it is printed on. You know, it was promising 2 million jobs, which the government has not managed to give us. And, you know, I've always had a problem with the Chinese employer in Zimbabwe, because people always complain that the working conditions when you work for a Chinese company in the country are not very good. So, you see, we have all these issues to look at. But we wait and see how this will turn out to be, how significant this visit is, because as far as the government is concerned, this means that we really have a friend, and that the looking policy has worked, and that at least now we can ignore the West, because Mugabe has been complaining about the double standards, but he says the West has been giving his government since the land reform.
All right, then.
Program, the early late 90s.
All right, we'll just keep an eye on how the meeting and how the meeting with President Mugabe goes and what comes out of it eventually. Thank you so much, John Mokwesi, there for us from Harare. Thank you for speaking to us on Network Africa.